In this podcast, we're going to look at Course Builder and how you can create a blueprint for a course using placeholders. And basically, to get to Course Builder, you go into your course, click on Tools, Edit Course, and then clicking on Course Builder. And I find it easier to find things if I have selected name for the organizational structure for the list of things instead of categories, because then everything is alphabetized by name. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Course Builder. And there's some instructions here where you can get some help on how to use Course Builder, but I'm just going to go ahead and click on the Start button. And if you don't want to see this every time you come in here, just uncheck that and it'll go away. So you'll notice here my course is called Course Builder. So normally your first item up there would be, if you're in a standard name course, it would be like HIS _201 _ V1, and then the year or the semester that the course is being offered. And that would show up right here. Since this course is named Course Builder, I just created it as a demo course to do these videos. And you'll notice that there is no content. It says actually to drag a module here to get started building your course. And once again, there are 3 columns. On the left-hand side, you're going to have things like placeholders, which we'll talk about in a minute. We'll have ways to add content. And then we'll have ways to add things from tools. So if you've pre-created your content, you can do it from down here. If you're building everything here from scratch, you can do that here. If you're just mocking up a course, you would be using the placeholders, which then later you could go back and add actual content items into. But what we're going to do here is just kind of create a blueprint for a course. Now, when whatever is clicked on this canvas area, whichever module, that's what you're in the third column. You're going to see a window that, depending on what you've clicked on, whatever the context of what's being highlighted is, it's going to show information about that. So it's a contextual window. And then, so basically, if you look here under Build and Outline, this is the way that you can go in and add just placeholders for things. You're not adding any real content, and this stuff is not going to show up in your course in the content area because it's really a hidden placeholder. So the first item is, if you mouse over these, it'll give you a description. Create a module, and that's the basic building block of every course. Everything has to go inside of a module. And then we have create a link placeholder, and then create a file placeholder, create a discussion placeholder, create a Dropbox placeholder, and create a quiz placeholder. So once again, we're just mocking up a blueprint of a course. So the first thing you need to do is drag a module over, and I'm going to drag it and drop it here. And whenever you drag and drop something into here like a module, it's going to pop up and have you give it a name. I'm just going to call this Week 1. You could do Chapter 1, Module 1, whatever the structure for your course is. Nothing is required in notes, and unless you need to make some notes to yourself, you probably don't need to put anything in there at all. And then you have some date restrictions for that module. Since we're just building a blueprint, I am not going to put anything in there. I'm just going to leave those blank, and I'm going to click Create. Now, if I drag another module over, I can drop it onto the canvas. I can drop it on here, and anything you drop back in the course, it's going to drop it down here at the bottom of the list. If I want to put something before Week 1, I can go up here and drop it up here. So I'm going to call this Week 2. Now you'll notice I did drop that before Week 1. I'm going to go ahead and click Create. So it did show up above it. All I need to do is grab that and drag it down, and it's going to go below it. Now, I'm going to go over here and pull another item over. If I drop it below it, it's going to go below it. If I drop it between it, it's going to go between it. If I click on this and it turns orange, it's going to drop it inside of week 1, so it's going to create a sub-module. So this is going to be, so I'll just call this like part 1. So we have week 1, part 1, and click create. So we've got a sub-module, and maybe you've got a couple different activities with a bunch of content and you want to break it up. You could do that here, and I'll do part 2. And this may make more sense if you had these named as modules instead of weeks. You may not need to go in here and have submodules on a weekly basis. And if you click on something, you can always go back over here and edit it. Notice I have a 0 before the 2, so if I want to make the names similar, so I've added a 0 there, so both of these are named the same. Now, I can bring this outside of this module by grabbing it and clicking it up here, and see how they get that black line across there and drop it, and those are now modules instead of submodules. If I want them to be inside and create them as submodules, I can just drag and drop them within like that. So those things you can move around. And once again, if you these module placeholders are not going to show up in your content area because there's nothing in them at this point. Now, I did say that these would not show up in the content area. Actually, the module placeholders do show up, but other types of placeholders do not show up. So if I drag a Dropbox item inside of week 1, I'm just going to let it have the name Dropbox, click create. So you notice there's a Dropbox there. Once again, that's a placeholder. And if I go over to content, I've got my week 1. You notice there's nothing inside of it. Week 2 does have the submodules. I'm going to go back to Course Builder. So the only things from this outline area that do show up within the actual course are the modules themselves. Any content you put in as placeholders do not show up. So say week 1, we know we're going to have a Dropbox and we're going to have a discussion forum. I'm just going to go ahead and create those. And once again, if I wanted to take time and name everything, if I know what those names are at this point, I can put them in. If I don't, I can just go ahead and kind of use a generic name for those. So I know I'm going to have discussions the first week and I'm going to have a Dropbox. Now maybe I know on week 2 I'm going to have a quiz. I'm going to go ahead and click create, and I've got my quiz there showing up. And maybe I know I'm going to have a couple links to websites, maybe some publisher content or something. So I'm going to go ahead and put those in. I'm just going to go ahead and click another one and drag another link down there. So I can give those names. So as I organize things, I know what I'm going to be adding later. If I do know a few of the things I want to add, I can go ahead and put them in and name them. If I just know I'm going to have like 5 quizzes, I can put in all my modules and drag the quizzes to where I think they're going to be, the Dropboxes to where they're going to be, and just create an outline or a blueprint for your course before you actually start building all of the content. Okay, it'll give you an idea how your course is going to be structured. And once again, instead of doing it here, you could do it in Visio or say PowerPoint, or maybe just pencil it out on a piece of paper. But sometimes people find it easier to go in here, kind of lay things out so they can see what they've got to work with, start throwing placeholders for content in. And if I decide, you know what, that Dropbox is actually going to be in week 2, I can drag it down here. Now you'll notice as I moved it and dragged it into week 2, it added it to the bottom of week 2. Okay, and if I want to move these modules down below that, I can just reorganized. So it's a great way before you start building to kind of go in and play around and start creating an outline to work from.